confidence is not a feeling that you wait for, and it's not something that we get from external validation. It's a skill that we build through action. Stop waiting for external validation. It's never going to be enough. There's always going to be people that don't like you, that say you're not enough or too much. You can't make everyone happy. Hello, and welcome back to the EmpowerHER Podcast. So today we're going to do a little bit of a different episode. I get a lot of questions in DMs from my clients and women in the community. So I thought, why don't we do a Q&A podcast? I put together some of the most frequently asked questions and I wanted to answer them for you all. So let's get into it. So question number one is, the first couple are career focused, but question number one is, I know I'm underpaid, but every time I think about asking for a raise, I talk myself out of it. How do I actually have that conversation without feeling like I'm asking for too much? So first of all, you're never too much, right? If you're underpaid, you are already not getting enough money. So that's kind of the baseline, right? If you're underpaid, you know you're underpaid. That's the baseline. And discomfort that you feel with not wanting to ask is coming from conditioning, not based on reality. I always say, would your straight white male counterpart also feel uncomfortable with asking for more money? Probably not. So something I always say, whether you're underpaid, you want to raise, you want more money, whatever it is from day one, when you started a company, you need to document your impact. What are all of the things that you do on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis that are above and beyond or additional from what your daily tasks are? The point of this is that you can come to the conversation with facts and evidence, not just feelings, which is how you'll get the best results. A timing can also matter, so I don't think that you need to wait necessarily until you have a win or a big project or a review cycle. You can if it happens to be coming up, but I would start having this conversation early on. You want to put this in your manager's head early on because a lot of times, especially in bigger corporate companies, just with the way it works with bureaucracy, it does sometimes take a couple of months before you can even get the salary raise. So you want to start having that conversation as soon as possible, letting your manager know. I would also write a mini script for yourself. So practice the actual words out loud before the meeting. And again, like the worst cases, they say no, right? The worst cases, they say no. You bring them the evidence. You say, based on the role, based on the activities that I do, based on the market value, I believe this role is worth X to X. I would love to talk about a salary raise. These are all the things that I've been doing that I believe warranted. And is that something, you're open to talking to? However you want to phrase it, but that's basically what it would look like in general on how you would have that conversation. Question number two is, I've been at my job for 3 years and keep getting passed over for promotions. I work harder than anyone on my team. What am I doing wrong? I love this question because it comes up a lot, right? And I often see this with high achieving women is they work hard, but working hard alone doesn't get you promoted. Visibility does. So what we just talked about in the previous question with making sure that you have everything documented, that's what you need to do. And then you also need to be visible about what you're doing. Now, again, this does not mean that you need to go presenting in front of the whole department and things like that, but you need to make your manager and your manager's manager know what are those things that you are doing, whether it's in your weekly or biweekly meetings with your manager, whether it's making sure they bring it to their boss. Like you have to make sure that those things are communicated. You also want to make sure of this because you have to think about like who is advocating for you in rooms that you're not in. And being clear about wanting a promotion and making it clear that you want the promotion. You can't just hope that if you do the work and you do everything right, that you're just going to get promoted. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. You have to ask, you have to document, you have to be visible. And again, there's a difference between being reliable and being promoted. they could look at you and say, oh, yeah, you're a great team member. You're super reliable. But then there's a difference between then wanting to promote you, right? So I want you to step into your power, stop waiting to be chosen, and instead ask for what you want. Ask for that promotion. Don't expect that that promotion is just going to happen. Ask for that promotion. Number 3 is, how do I know when it's time to leave a job versus when I'm just burned out and need a break? So burnt out from the job itself versus burnt out from how you're showing up is very different, right? So I think you can ask yourself, like, okay, if I were to take a 2-week vacation, I didn't have to think about work. I could just take some time off, rest, do whatever fills my cup, and then come back. Would you want to come back? I think that's the difference. Because if you would want to come back, then it's probably not your environment. Maybe you're just overworked or you have a lot, but then you may like your job or like your environment. If you wouldn't want to come back, then it could be a larger burnout question. So you have to kind of see too, is like, is this role what you want? Is it giving you something, right? Because I always say every 2 years, if you're not learning or making more money, it is time to think about an alternative. And then if you're burnt out on top of that, why would you stay somewhere that's not helpful? I do think though, and I talk a lot about this with my clients, is changing jobs isn't necessarily going to solve your problem of being burnt out. We also have to think about, are you setting boundaries? How are you feeling about that? So like there's other things that we can discuss to really analyze. But just in general, I do think you can see and understand of like, if I were to take a vacation, would that help? Or is it really like the environment that I'm in and the situation that I'm in? So your nervous system is definitely something I would focus on first, is really trying to regulate. That can help you better see if it's the kind of burnout where you need to leave versus if it's just a situation where, you need a break or you need some time off. Question number 4 is, I consider myself a feminist, but I feel guilty asking my partner for a prenup or postnup. How do I get over that? This comes from one of the previous episodes where I talked about prenups and postnups. So the guilt is conditioning. You were taught that asking for these things means that you don't trust love, that you're a bad person, that you don't care about your partner. But a prenup is not a divorce plan. I want to make this so clear. If you do not make your own prenup, the state or country you live in will make the prenup for you. They will make it for you, okay? In America, United States, each state has different laws for what that looks like. And then if you go to different countries, they have different laws for what that looks like. You will have a prenup regardless of if you make one. So why wouldn't you make one that you actually abide by and that actually works for you and your situation? And the same thing is like car insurance, right? You don't have car insurance because you think you're going to get into an accident. You have it just in case it happens. It's the same thing with the prenup or a postnup. You don't think you're going to get divorced, but you never know. People change. The divorce rate is really high if we're being so honest, right? And I'm someone too. I'm married. I want to be with my partner forever, but I'm also not under any delusion that that's 100% guaranteed. Who knows? In 20 years, we could be totally different people and not want to be together, So I think it helps to think about it that way. And I truly believe that a partner who respects you and the right partner will be open to this discussion. If they're not open to this discussion, there's probably some deeper rooted issues, and you may have to evaluate if that's the right relationship for you at the end of the day, because your financial security as a woman should be a non-negotiable. Okay. Question number 5, also from a previous episode, is I want to decenter men, but I'm not sure what that actually looks like in a relationship. How do you do it without causing conflict? I don't know that you can not have conflict, especially if you've been with someone for a long time and you've always centered them and then now you're not. I went into my relationship already decentering my husband. He was a boyfriend at the time because I had learned from my previous relationship. So it's not like I started to decenter him, so I didn't have that conflict. He already knew what he was getting himself into. But in previous relationships, I'm sure it would have caused conflict, and it did when I tried to decenter them. But it's not about creating conflict necessarily. It's about coming back to yourself. So I would start small. Just make one decision a week that's purely based on what you want. Maybe Thursday night, you don't want to cook dinner, and you say to your husband or partner, be like, hey, I'm super tired, don't want to cook dinner. Do you mind figuring out what we're going to eat? Period. And then he has to decide. I would communicate it as positive, right? It's not that you're spending less time with him. It's that you're prioritizing your friendships, your work, your goals. Phrase it that way instead of feeling more aggressive about it, right? Because that can come off as, negative to your partner. And again, a secure partner, a secure man will not feel threatened by your independence. And if he does feel threatened by this conversation or this situation, then that's something that you should talk about sooner rather than later. And again, this is more of a practice, not a switch. So it's about choosing yourself, right? It's about not cleaning when you don't feel like it. It's about going to your friend's house instead of your in-laws when it's not a, important occasion, right? It's about choosing those things that are going to make you happy in a partnership. Let's say you're dating someone, you're not even living together, and he makes tentative plans for Friday night, but he never confirms until like Friday during the day. You decide, you know what, I'm not going to wait for him, and on Thursday I'm going to make plans with my girlfriends for Friday night. And if he texts you, you'll tell him that you already made plans, right? You're decentering him. And it's not that you don't want to hang out with him. You can say, hey, I'm already busy that day. I want to hang out on Saturday. Can you do Saturday instead, right? You're just prioritizing the things that matter to you. So I would start with small things like that. Question 6 is, I say yes to everything at work because I'm scared of being seen as difficult or not a team player. How do I start saying no without damaging my reputation? It is difficult to set boundaries after the fact, but I do think that being difficult and having boundaries are not the same thing. And anyone who thinks you're being difficult by having boundaries benefits from you not having boundaries. Rewind that if you need to. Okay, that's important. The people who say no strategically are often the most respected. I actually talked about this in a previous episode, that those women who are super high up and super successful CEOs run their own business, they actually have to say no like intensely. They have to set intense boundaries, and they're very well respected because of that. So I don't actually think it's a negative thing. Maybe at first someone may not take it well, especially if they're not used to you having boundaries, but just start with small no, right? Say, instead of saying, oh yeah, I'll take on that extra project, say, right now I'm fully booked, but in 2 weeks I'll have more free time and can take it on then. If they say they need it now, you say, okay, which project that I currently have would you like me to deprioritize for this? It's setting those boundaries. It's saying I'm not going to work past 5 o'clock when that's my time. I am going to take my 1 hour lunch break. I am not going to respond to this email within 30 seconds of it being sent, right? Those are the small boundaries that you can do. And again, you don't owe anyone an explanation or an elaborate explanation. And you can also reframe it, right? You can reframe it as like, the reason I'm not responding immediately is because I'd like to think about it. The reason I'm not taking this on is because I'm not sure that I'm able to complete this project in a given time frame. I'd like to reprioritize. I want to give it my best effort, right? And again, your reputation won't, but shouldn't be damaged by boundaries. And if it does, and there's resentment and negativity, it may not be the best workplace. Question 7 is, I've been in therapy for a while, but I still struggle with people pleasing. Why is it so hard to stop even when you know you're doing it? This is a good one. As an ex-people pleaser, I feel this to my core. And, the thing is that just because we know people pleasing isn't good, it doesn't mean that our nervous system is completely rewired or our subconscious is rewired, right? So it really comes from, people pleasing is something that has kept us safe at some point in our lives, right? Your nervous system still believes it needs to be safe. Your nervous system still feels like, in order to feel safe in your body, that you have to people please. That's usually where it's coming from. So awareness is the first step, just being aware of this, recognizing this. And then it's small steps to being uncomfortable, but still doing it and disappointing people. you have to be in the discomfort. You have to learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because that's the only way it's going to get easier. Then it will get easier. You will get to a point where you don't feel uncomfortable doing that. And I felt so uncomfortable setting boundaries, not being a people pleaser, not saying yes to everything. It's story of my life. I was in therapy for 2.5 years, one of the main topics we talked about. But it is a mindset shift. It is a nervous system regulation shift. It is a subconscious shift. You have to take those baby steps, and that's how you'll be able to do it. It's not going to just click and turn off or on one day to the next. It's definitely a practice. Question 8, how do you build confidence when you spent your whole life being told you're too much or not enough? This one hits home because as someone who has always had comments about my weight and how I look, I definitely feel this to my core. And I believe that confidence is not a feeling that you wait for, and it's not something that we get from external validation. It's a skill that we build through action. We basically, and I truly believe in fake it till you make it, of like pretending that you're confident, exuding confidence, even if you don't feel it inside, because I do think eventually you will start to feel confident. And I don't think that that's dishonest. There are studies that show that if you really exude a certain behavior like happiness or a certain feeling, you will start to feel it. So there are studies that show that. So I think it works the same way with confidence. And of course, the more you do something, the more confident you'll become as well. And your body and your mind will have evidence of, oh, I actually can do this thing, or, oh, that's amazing. So I would stop waiting for external validation. It's never going to be enough. There's always going to be people that don't like you, that say you don't look good, that say you're not enough or too much. There's always going to be people. You can't make everyone happy. This goes back to the people pleasing question. Therapy definitely is helpful here. So therapy can be super helpful, but trusting yourself. You have to trust yourself. That's what builds confidence. And start with the small wins, because the small wins are what compound. So you start with one thing you've been avoiding and that you do badly, and you practice and you keep going. My motto has been the last few years, whether it's in work or usually in work, typically because I work a lot. If I'm not good at something, I will keep doing it until I'm good at it. In my career coaching, there were aspects of career coaching that I felt the least confident with, and now I feel the most confident with because I've done them so many times. So it is repetition to some degree. Question 9, I'm in my late 20s and feel completely behind. My friends are getting married, buying houses, advancing in their careers. How do I stop comparing myself? So I love this question, and I do think that there's certain places where this happens, although I do think, late 20s is that time. Tinks, if y'all listen to our podcast, she talks about the splinter era where, it's kind of like that late 20s, early 30s where your friend group kind of goes in different directions. Some are still single partying, some are like having kids. It's wild. And I shared this before, but when I was 28, one of my best friend's partners, he's a male, obviously, told me that I was like ridiculous, that I wouldn't settle down and why was I dating so much? I was having the time of my life. And, I always thought like, oh, by the time I'm 30, like maybe I'll have a kid or maybe I'll do this. But I let go of the timeline really early on. And like people have so many assumptions about what I should and shouldn't be doing. I got married when I was 31 and a half, which is technically older. I'm 33 and I do want kids, not planning on having them anytime soon. People think that's crazy because, oh my God, you're going to be such an old mom, etc. So people have always said that to me, and people will always try to get you on their timeline. I think really what happens in this situation, because I have a lot of friends that are moms and are kind of living that life, whereas like my husband and I travel a lot and we go out and we definitely have much more of that like, single life. Obviously we're together and in a monogamous relationship, but we live that like fun, child-free life. And I think it's more about like, are we going to lose our friendships? How do we do that? And, we still hang out with all of our friends who have kids. We just do different types of activities with them. We, hang out with them and their kids at their house, playgrounds, things that work for them. And then with their single friends or friends that are child-free, we do other activities. So I think that's one thing of like, what are those activities you can do? But also like, why does why is getting married, buying a house, and having kids the accomplishment, right? Like when we talk about being behind, what about them being behind because they didn't party enough or they didn't travel enough, right? Like there's so many other ways to evaluate what being behind looks like. Why are we letting society traditionally has told us, which is, by the way, created by the patriarchy, that we need to get married, settle down, and have kids? Why are we adhering to those things when that doesn't even work for us? So I think like just first analyze like, is that even something you want? Or is it just something you think you should have? I think that's number one. And number two is like 20s are just, you're still so young. Like you have so much life to live. Like women can have kids up until, 40s now, get married later in life. You don't even need to have kids if you don't want to. Like there's just so much time, and doing things before you're ready also isn't helpful. And everyone has their own timeline. Like everyone does things at a different time because you are unique. No one is exactly like you, has the same experience as you, has the same background as you. And that's important because you know what is right for you and what you want. So I would really try to understand if that's even something you want, and also understand like what are your life goals and what that looks like for you, rather than comparing yourself to others. And question 10, final question. I know what I want, but I'm terrified of making the wrong decision. How do you actually learn to trust yourself? Love this. So trusting yourself can be really hard. We are not taught to trust ourselves. In fact, we do trust ourselves as babies, and we have that intuition. And then through schooling and through our society, it's really pushed out of us, and we have to relearn. I had to relearn to trust myself and my intuition and what I felt. And so I think it's by doing small steps of making decisions and being okay with them. I really don't believe in wrong decisions. I just think that we make decisions with the information we have in the moment. And then later on, if you learn more, get more information, then you can pivot. You can make a different decision. I always think about whatever decision you make in the moment is always the right decision because you're making it based on the information you know. You don't have any additional information, right? Hindsight's always 20/20. We can always say, oh, we should have done this and this, but we don't know what we should have done because we don't have that information. So I would just really start with making small decisions, not overthinking, not letting other people give their opinions. Make small decisions. Notice how it feels in your body when you make those decisions. And the more you do it, the more you listen to your instincts, the more you trust yourself, the more that you really listen to your intuition, you're going to start building that trust with yourself, and the clarity is going to come. I used to be someone, and I've talked about this, where I would ask, like, for example, I was an adult living in a completely different country, and I could not make one decision like what furniture to buy or what thing to do without calling my mom. Like, absolutely could not do it. And now I'm at the point where I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum, and I basically make decisions completely independently because I trust myself. I believe in myself. I know that I'm capable of the right decision, and I know that I'm making a decision with the facts and information that I have. I hope that was an interesting episode, a little bit of a different format. And, these are a lot of the questions that I get often from my clients in my DMs, from people chatting with me, but they're also not unique to women. Like, these are a lot of the topics that women are carrying. A lot of why I do these episodes on these topics, because this is what I find is in the wild and what people are talking about. So just know that if any of these questions resonated, or if you thought these questions, that you're absolutely not alone. And I absolutely hope that they were helpful. If they were, please subscribe to the podcast and leave a 5-star review. I always really, really appreciate it. And I hope you all have an amazing week, and I'll catch you in the next episode.